There's quite a bit of Tesla stock news. There's one story that shocked me a little bit, but let's start with something that's important to watch. The European Commission this week is expected to disclose tariffs it plans to impose on Chinese electric vehicles. Tesla makes Model Ys in Germany, but it doesn't make any Model 3, so it's important to watch because of that. From what we have heard before about these tariffs, Tesla shouldn't really be affected, but we never really know until the final decision is actually announced, because all Model 3s that enter Europe are made in China. Director of the Harvard Law School program on corporate governance published 3 posts on the governance of Tesla at this critical juncture, and this is basically all negative. He says any comments would be most welcome. Well, I hope he welcomes this community note then, which points out that he is getting paid $1,850 per hour. For what exactly? Well, Alexandra asks him, how come you failed to disclose that the plaintiff's attorneys paid you for expert opinions against Tesla and that you are advocating that retail shareholders' letters to the board and court shouldn't count? Someone's asking the Bar Association to look into this matter for a potential conflict of interests. Elon commented on the matter as well, saying he is such a weasel. Sometimes they do come out of hiding. Okay, well, this one is going to shock some of you. Bill Gates' investment firm backs Elon Musk's pay package, calling it ambitious but good for shareholders. Bill Gates and Elon Musk, these two, they don't get along, so it's quite good to see that. And we know that Bill Gates earlier had a short position against Elon Musk's Tesla. There's been so much discussion about retail shareholders voting after Elon said that roughly 90% of the shareholders who have already voted, that are retail investors, voted in favor of both resolutions. And I certainly wouldn't go with this statement here if 90% of 46% investors who are retail support it. Tesla needs just 16% of institutional shareholders to back it. Elon did not say that 90% of retail Tesla shareholders voted. He said of those that voted, 90% voted in favor. There's a big difference, because in theory Elon would be right making that statement even if only 10% of retail Tesla stock investors voted. We clearly know how retail is voting, but we don't know how many of us are actually voting. Anyway, Gary continues his point. Of course, it would help to get closer to the 73% approval from 2018. That would require 58.5% of institutional votes at least, because Gary's numbers assume that basically all of retail investors are voting, to show the court that even with all this year's beefed up disclosures, Tesla shareholders are overwhelmingly support giving Elon Musk his money, which of course he deserves. I like that Gary Black is encouraging everyone to vote though. Gary Black made a follow-up post after he got some pushback against him using numbers that imply that 100% of Tesla retail shareholders would vote. So he gave another example. If 2/3 of retail investors vote and 100% of institutional investors vote, and if 90% of retail investors vote for Elon's compensation plan, and if retail excluding Elon and Kimball make up 45% of the vote, Tesla needs just 42% of institutions to support proposal 4 for it to pass. So 42%, that's a lot more than 16%. There's a bit of disagreement exactly how much is owned by retail investors, but we know it's a very significant number. And here's a stat that will make you want to vote if you haven't voted yet. In 2023, 80% of all institutions voted, many using Glass Lewis or ISS, and 29.6% of all retail investors voted. So that's a low number. I definitely assume that participation is going to be higher this time, but by how much? I don't really know. And shareholder voting has been relatively consistent for retail. It's about 30% looking at the last 5-ish years. One of the longest Tesla shareholders, who owns $3.1 billion worth of Tesla stock, is going to vote for the reinstatement of Elon Musk's 2018 compensation package. Tomorrow we are getting weekly numbers from China, but we just got final numbers for May, and we now have export and local sales split for May in China. Tesla exported only 17,350 vehicles, which is the lowest since November last year. On the other hand, local sales in China were 55,000, up 29% year over year. Don't be surprised if exports keep going down and then Giga Berlin's production increases. The Chinese auto market right now is brutal, and while many people are not exactly excited about Tesla Tesla sales in China. Look at this trend line showing market share. I believe this includes all kinds of vehicles, including gas-powered vehicles. And the market share for Tesla is actually going up a little bit looking at this trend line. We had the Model 3 refresh around here, but then it was fully rammed quickly, and the market share is still going up. Keep in mind that in China, there are literally hundreds of vehicle launches annually. There is just too much selection. Everyone operates either on loss-making or razor-thin margins. So right now, everyone is just going after market share, hoping they can create enough scale to become profitable. But Tesla is already profitable. So a lot of these companies are going to go out of business, and then the whole industry is going to reset itself a little bit. And then you will see something similar to what's happening in the US, where some companies are just losing hope, which puts Tesla in a better position. And here's a general Q2 update. In Q2, the most challenging region for Tesla is Europe. Compared to last quarter, sales are up a lot in the US and moderately in China, but Europe is down a lot. The biggest decline is expected to be in Germany, but we know that a big reason for these lower sales in Germany is incentives that have been removed for EVs. And the incentives in Germany before created a really weird market. For example, many people that bought EVs with the German environmental bonus sold them 6 months later at a profit to other European countries. And then last December, another incentive expired. As I promised on the weekend, I dropped another new video on the new channel. It's about Cathie Wood's latest Tesla stock update and about when she will increase her Tesla stock target again. A link to it is down below in the description. AI Driver says that the auto park feature has gotten much better with the latest FSD build, and we got the drone shot here in the middle. And it is doing a fairly decent job. It's going a bit slow, but I think the reason why it's going so slow is not because it cannot go faster, it's because Tesla probably put in certain limits for it to not go faster because it still knows it's not perfect, and therefore you do need a bit more time to catch it doing something wrong. But this is an improvement compared to the previous version. I mean, look at how tight this parking spot is. So overall, not bad. It switches between gears faster. We have more people reporting their experiences with the newest FSD version. It did really well on this drive, 18 miles and 0 interventions. Changing lanes too frequently though on city streets remains a problem. Omar posted a 27-minute drive with no interventions on the latest FSD version. He doubles down that it is very powerful, but it definitely needs more polish. And here's someone else who completed his first commute on the newest FSD version. It went very well and he didn't have to touch the wheel for over 45 minutes. It wasn't too far off perfect. I've been giving this build a lot of hate, but on my commute, it was great. Yesterday, I had maybe a 1-hour drive and I had to get rid of the steering wheel nag maybe 30 times. I find the nag to actually make my driving less safe because I'm looking at the road in front of me and then I see the screen flash on my right side. So I often look at the screen and I realize, okay, it's time for the steering wheel nag to be removed. And then I turn down the music volume usually to get rid of it. And then I look at the road again. It's not a big deal on a short drive, but in a long drive, it becomes exponentially annoying. In the meantime, in Europe, Tesla is doing promotions like this one. Tesla is offering 15,000 free supercharger miles to anyone in the UK who buys and takes delivery of a new Tesla before the end of the quarter. The offer is a bit different in each country, but the idea is basically the same. Tesla has started hiring again in nearly every category: manufacturing, legal, operations, sales, service, software, etc. So the layouts are probably over now. Tesla now has a new head of investor relations. His name is Travis Axelrod. JP Morgan spoke to him and they said the head of IR said there's some misunderstanding regarding Mr. Musk's desire for control of 25% of Tesla's voting shares, suggesting this desire is motivated primarily by the wish to protect humanity from the potentially negative implications of imprudent or improper use of AI technology. Mr. Musk is focused on having a strong enough voice at the company via control of a sufficient number of voting shares, such that he could ensure a proper governance structure around the use of AI, given the not unreasonable assumption that AI could surpass human-level intelligence in the next several years. To which Elon replied with, "Exactly. I definitely support giving Elon more control. Keep in mind, he's not asking for economical benefits, he's only asking for voting rights." Tesla is now sending out RSVP key confirmations for their shareholder meeting this Thursday. The shareholder meeting starts 30 minutes after market closes at 3:30 p.m. Central Time in the US. I'm telling all my family and friends, don't contact me during these hours on Thursday. I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb. I will be unreachable. I will be watching it live. The chief investment officer of a big fund in the US is voting against Elon Musk.
We'll pay him 140 times the average worker pay. How about that deal? I think that's more than fair. This pay package is ridiculous. And I know he's mad. He'll say I'm absurd to say that. I'm sorry, Elon. You know, he wants to go to Mars. Let's let him fly away. They are not worth 60 times earnings. That is absurd.
Then why are they holding Tesla stock? Shouldn't they just sell all of it? This explains the whole situation pretty well. There are no sound arguments. Those voting no are either number 1, communists, number 2, virtue signaling communists, number 3, have sand in their bag because Elon has opinions, number 4, have sand in their bag because they lost money betting on short-term Tesla options. By the way, we will only know by August 31st how each institution voted, whether it's for or against Elon. Not only could some of these institutions lose many retail Tesla shareholders as clients, but they could lose any potential future access to funding rounds for Elon's companies, collaborations, and things like that. The Tesla economist before had a bullish position and he was planning to close it, I think, around August 8th, right before the unveil of the robotaxi. But now he says, I am bearish on Tesla and that is my prerogative. I am free to think how I want. He says, I still analyze the company as I trade in and out of it with both calls and puts. Ooh. And I haven't lost one trade out of the last 8, although my returns have only been 20 to 80%. I hope he made all his money back that he lost when he sold precisely pretty much at the bottom in 2022 December. I'm sorry if you don't agree with my findings, but I haven't insulted anyone. Oh, I call some of you cultists. Okay. I think many will take that as a strong insult. It's like when I remember someone said, oh, I didn't insult that girl, I just called her ugly. Okay. I don't care about Tesla's new missions like self-driving cars or bots. I never signed up for that. I was passionate about the mission to decentralize energy and transport and take away the power that oil companies have along with associated effects like wars. This mission seems to have been forgotten in the community. Robotaxis don't do it for me, and I don't see them coming to fruition anytime in the foreseeable future. Speaking of full self-driving and robotaxis, I have seen this channel somewhere. However, I do have to admit I didn't watch this video, so maybe he didn't promote robotaxis. Then he asked people to unfollow or block him because until I see something change with Tesla Energy, EVs, batteries, or several step changes with FSD, then I will remain bearish, and I'm not prepared to jump onto the next fad of hope just because it's Tesla or Elon. I follow the financials of the story more. I got too swept up on Elon's stories in the past until I realized they are just stories and never come to fruition. Speaking of facts and stories, yeah, Elon made a successful reusable rocket and he just achieved something literally. Just now, he landed Starship, the biggest flying object that went to space and back, and landed fairly successfully. That has never been done before, but sure, that's just a story that didn't come to fruition. Building an electric vehicle when no one else was willing to do it, also just a story that didn't come to fruition. Saying that the Model Y will be probably the worst best-selling vehicle of any kind is also just a story that didn't come to fruition. Exactly like FSD hasn't made progress and is not going to come to fruition. The Tesla economist made another post. It says self-driving cars that you can drop off anywhere in the world and they will just know how to drive in any country, according to Elon, except clearly self-driving seems to work much better in places like California, almost as if the data is geofenced. Now, if we do a little bit of thinking, we will realize that Tesla has more vehicles in California than in other places, and naturally, Tesla collects more data in California than in other places. And by the way, Tesla did an FSD test in Europe and it showed that it can work well in Europe too. Also, we have seen someone basically hack Tesla a little bit and turn on FSD in Moldova. So yeah, right, it doesn't work anywhere in the world, even though the signs are going to be different. No, it actually drove fine. And over here in Canada, in Vancouver, which by the way is not in California, if I don't mind arriving to my destination a little bit slower, I can turn on FSD, and unless I go through rush hour traffic downtown, I can have multiple no intervention interventions drives. Now, some of these moments are not going to be comfortable if I don't intervene. FSD is definitely not perfect and you need to pay full attention to the road. But I'm just saying, I'm capable of having many no interventions drives in a place that is not California. As long as I avoid the downtown area, I have a safety related intervention maybe once an hour. But if I'm trying to get places, I intervene a lot more than that, just pressing the accelerator pedal just to go a bit faster or preventing a lane change. Things that wouldn't be important if the vehicle was already a robotaxi. There's some good news. A firm that has about $4.5 billion under management, seemingly, says it is voting in favor of Elon Musk. Elon replied, saying it's much appreciated. He says, first, I believe Tesla stock will go up if the compensation agreement is reinstated and down if it is not. I think that's highly likely. But more importantly, and pay attention here, approving this pay package is the right thing to do. I think those voting against should seriously reevaluate their moral compass. And just because the stock is likely to go down if the vote doesn't go through and likely to go up if it does go through, you can tell which institutional investors care about customers by how they vote on Elon's compensation package. If they vote no, they are knowingly harming their own customers. I have to cover this piece because it doesn't tell the full story, and I think it's important. Tesla FUD is at an all-time high, and the perpetrators are not the usual suspects. They are Elon and his sycophants. It's wild that they have been spreading rumors of Elon leaving if the vote doesn't go his way, and Elon decided not to dispute the rumors. Based on his own testimony, he said that he wouldn't leave. This is from court transcripts, and you recall, don't you, saying during that call that whether or not you are CEO forever, you intended to be actively involved with Tesla for the rest of your life, hopefully stopping before you got too old or too crazy. Elon answered yes. And sir, that was a truthful statement at that time, correct? Yes, answered Elon. And that statement of intent never changed between the time you gave it in May of 2017 and at least up to the time of your deposition in this case. True? Elon answered yes. And sir, when Tesla's investor relations folks prepared a Q&A script for discussions with outside stockholders after your plan was announced, it included a specific question about whether you would quit if the plan wasn't approved by stockholders. And it said in response, the specific answer was that no, you wouldn't quit if that plan wasn't approved. Do you recall reviewing that and you recall that being accurate, sir? Elon answered yes. And that's because as stated in the script, you were, quote, heavily invested in Tesla, both financially and emotionally, and you view Tesla as part of your family, right? Elon answered yes. I think the transcript that Fred shared is helpful and is important to be aware of that, but it's convenient not to pay attention to this. And I think this is quite important. So pay very close attention right now. This is Elon Musk, the two areas where the board pushed significantly, which I conceded, and you know this is Elon Musk speaking because the transcript is written is exactly how Elon Musk would speak, where that I had asked for fully diluted, the board declined to do fully diluted, and the board also said that I think the shares could not be sold for a period of 5 years after the exercise of the options. I should say that the 5-year holding period is perhaps that was my biggest concern, because it would mean that either I would need to run the company for another 5 years after the stock vested, or I would need to find someone who would run the company well enough to not cause the valuation to subsequently decline significantly. And you agreed to both of those terms? Yes, a lot can happen in 5 years. Does it mean that Elon Musk would have left Tesla completely? No, it doesn't mean that. It could mean that he would have hired or found a CEO for Tesla and he just remained at Tesla, but more as a product engineer instead of the CEO. And is that something you want? That's not something that I want. So as you can see, this question of Elon Musk staying at Tesla is a bit more murky and it's not exactly perfectly crystal clear, as some of the people voting against this compensation package want you to believe. And here's one thing that everyone who says, oh, Elon Musk should not focus on other companies, he should just focus on Tesla, they ignore this from the court transcripts. Mr. Musk, back in 2018, would you have accepted a compensation plan that prevented you from being the CEO running other companies? No. He would not have accepted the compensation plan, meaning less time on Tesla and more time on other companies. And here's another thing that I often hear from people that oppose Elon's compensation package. Oh, make sure that Elon Musk spends this much time at least on Tesla. Have a minimum commitment from Elon Musk. Would you have accepted a plan that effectively had a punch clock, where you had to punch in certain times and punch out certain times at Tesla in order to get the compensation. No, says Elon. Also, what Fred referred to in his post, that was all before this trial happened, basically. What Elon Musk was thinking about Tesla and the future, but a lot can change in a matter of a year or two. So while we know what Elon Musk was thinking years earlier, we don't really know what he's thinking right now. Well, based on his posts, he's saying that he prefers not to develop further AI products if he doesn't have 25% control. So we sort of know what he's thinking. And then Fred continues, I do still believe that the vote is more likely than not to pass, but that yes tactics are very disappointing, true meaning of FUD. The most disappointing thing is that all that, the vote, for very little to no impact. Tesla will be stuck in months, if not years, of further litigations over this issue. The playbook is clear at this point. Elon and his sycophants will blame everyone but themselves. It's because of a crooked judge, greedy lawyers, and Elon haters who own Tesla stock. In truth, the real source of the problem is the lack of governance. With solid governance, the greedy lawyers wouldn't have an opportunity to sue and we wouldn't be here, but Elon is making sure it's a one-man show at the top of Tesla, and as long as he denies any governance issues, there are going to be more litigations around this and a dark cloud over Tesla. The only counter they have to this is the false choice between proper governance and Elon, as if Tesla wouldn't have worked without Elon's one-man show, or as if Elon can't operate within proper public company governance. The current governance is what created these massive returns for Tesla shareholders. And I personally, as long as we have huge growth prospects in the future, I don't mind the current governance. Sure, it creates a lot of noise. A lot of it, definitely, yes. But also it created great results. I would prefer to not do anything that would drive Elon away. Without Elon, I think there's pretty much no chance we would have had returns like this. Let's hear from an engineer at Tesla. My interview with the Autopilot team early 2016 was very different than most interviews I had ever taken. We first had a technical discussion on something I had built before with several engineers and the executive in charge of the group at the time. An actual whiteboard chat where we were all bouncing ideas on the matter together. The only places I had ever seen the face of anyone above, at best, a team lead during interviews, was at some small startups. Every one-on-one interview that followed was similarly practical, real coding situations you would encounter as an engineer, not useless lead code, trick questions typically found in other big companies' interviews. When we got done, the recruiter walked me through the office. Everyone was sitting literally next to each other, Autopilot software, hardware, vehicle firmware, and many other teams interacting live without friction. Eventually, we walked past Elon Musk's desk, and he was sitting right there next to the engineering teams, not in any separate ivory tower. 1 week in the job, and I was already in a team meeting with him brainstorming Autopilot technical challenges, exactly how it went during my interview. And that went almost every single week for the 8 years that followed. It soon became pretty clear that Elon was directly behind that culture of pragmatic innovation percolating through all aspects of the company. Week after week, I've witnessed that relentless drive to build features that make people's lives better and safer, removing roadblocks and unnecessary layers one after another, systematically drilling down to the fundamental why. All of this while sleeping at the factory during the Model 3 production hell, designing new vehicles, working on BOM reductions, and launching new factories across the globe. During that entire time, through all these chapters, news headlines, and other difficult company-wide moments, and while landing rockets on drone ships in the ocean, Elon was still sitting with us in a room every week, often more, with the only objective of building things that will change humanity for the better. When he announced Tesla would soon start a humanoid robotics program to fuel a future of abundance at AI Day 2021, many once again laughed and doubted. 2 years into the program, and Tesla is actively testing early versions of what could well be the first full-fledged humanoid robot equipped with articulated hands, autonomously conducting real tasks in a real factory via an end-to-end neural net running entirely on the bot's compute hardware, and again using 2D cameras only. Whether a Tesla or not, I'd say the same. Without Elon, none of any of these amazing things would have ever happened. I can only imagine what a lesser future we would be living without his involvement and dedication. If you own Tesla shares, please find 5 minutes to vote. This is pretty important. Sawyer helped over 200 investors via DM since yesterday. One common theme I've been seeing is that investors are waiting for their brokerages to contact them. Don't wait for anybody. Be proactive and call your brokerage or institution directly. If you use Schwab and still haven't voted, try typing proxy events into the search bar once you have logged into your account. Then click the proxy events link on that page that pops up. If that doesn't work, just call your brokerage directly. Here's another Tesla engineer. Having been at Tesla for 9 years now, working with many teams in that time, he shares the same sentiment that Milan did. Tesla is very much like multiple startups collaborating as close to the speed of thought as possible to solve engineering problems. The pace of innovation achieved did not come from a vacuum, but from a strong sense of direction and leadership from the top. Elon is that driving force. That's it for today's video. I made a new Patreon video. This just seriously made my day. It's of course Tesla related. Also, make sure to subscribe to the new channel. I dropped a new video on there on Sunday. Kathy Wood drops her latest Tesla stock update and when she'll increase her Tesla stock target. There's going to be a link below to that video. It's pretty good. That new channel, by the way, is going to be more political, so don't subscribe unless you support Elon Musk. No video yesterday on this channel because I had a few medical visits and that took quite a bit more time than expected, and I do have a few more scheduled for this week. Nothing serious, but I need to get these done. I have a few more left, so I'm not sure how the video tomorrow or on Thursday is gonna go. And I'll add early access to my YouTube videos on Patreon starting with Friday. I was planning to do that earlier, but then my schedule got all messed up and I'm rushing to catch up. The videos on YouTube will still be published roughly at the same time. It's just that the videos on Patreon with early access, I will not have finished fully double checking the video, and I will publish it there before I eat. Usually I finish everything, I go eat, which can take an hour, sometimes longer, and then I double check everything and then I publish. By joining Patreon, you will have access to all of my exclusive videos on Patreon, as well as how much I am willing to pay for each Tesla share between 2024 and 2033. If you join the investor tier, you will also have access to my valuation model, where you will see all of my assumptions, including deliveries, the energy business, Tesla's future businesses like FSD, and of course much more. And then if you want to easily download that and put in your own numbers, then this third tier is for you. To all of my Patreon supporters, thank you so much. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet as well. It's really important to like the videos because that makes it less likely that the channel will be shadow banned later, like my other big channel got shadow banned before from about 50% of my regular viewers. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.